For years, I've been wanting to get a particular look with my photos and my filming. It's called tilt shift, and it's created by changing the angle of the lens with regards to the digital sensor or the film. And it allows us to get some focus and blur in really interesting places. It can be used to make scenery look like a miniature, creating a super shallow depth of field. But it also creates a really dreamy feel for portraits and other compositions, and can add some really interesting emotions to a scene. You can do it digitally in post-production, but it looks kind of fake and loses that organic feel. And of course you can buy a tilt shift lens, but those cost hundreds to thousands of dollars, and it just doesn't seem worth it for this effect. So I did a little bit of research and I discovered that you can actually build your own tilt shift lens, and it turns out it's pretty cheap. The most important thing you need is a lens. A cheap, throwaway kind of lens, but one which still has good glass. I found this old Rikenon 50mm lens that I paid about $15 for at a market. And it's also pretty lightweight, which is great. So now in order to attach the lens to the body, I went and bought myself a spare Fuji X-T4 body cap for my camera. We'll be able to drill a hole through this and then use it to attach the lens onto the body. But to get the tilt shift effect, I went hunting in a hardware store and found some of these rubber bungs. To be honest, I'm not a plumber and I don't even know what these are for. But if we can use them to join the lens to the cap, it will mean we can push and pull the lens around without it falling off. The trick here is we're trying to compromise between something sturdy enough to make sure that the lens doesn't fall off, but flexible enough to make sure we can push and pull the lens and we can get that tilt shift effect. So Raven is here to lend us a hand with his glue gun and his Dremel, so let's see what we can do.
Let's do this.
So first we're going to cut a hole into this lens cap so that it just becomes a screw-in ring, so we can just attach it onto the camera body but see right through it. And yeah, I think let's make a hole and then drill it out to get it a bit wider. Now we're going to see how we can join the lens and the body cap together and how much of this rubber we need to go in the middle. The first thing I did was to test out how far the lens needs to be away from the body with some pieces of cardboard. So I just cut some rings and I put them around my lens and then held it up to the body of the camera and had a look through to figure out what the optimal distance is between the lens and the camera. And for me and this lens, it's roughly 2.5 centimeters, about that much. But I'd recommend trying this out to get the distance of your lens just right. So let's try and cut these bits of rubber to the right size, and we're going to test it out before we start gluing. So this bit of rubber fits quite snugly around the lens, so we won't actually have to glue it on. This rubber plumbing pipe connector fits around the lens on one side and seems to just about fit into the hole in the body cap on the other side. So we'll make a few small adjustments and then get it stuck in. This bit of the rubber tube is a bit long, so we're going to cut it shorter. And then we're going to glue the cone part of the tube onto the bit of rubber which is on the lens. I guess this section of the tutorial is going to depend on what you can find in your local hardware store. But we found this rubber useful because it's flexible but still firm enough to hold the lens in place. Now we've got all our dimensions right, let's glue this thing together. And it's that easy. Well, it would have been a little bit easier if we'd done some research into what glues to use to combine this plastic and this sort of rubber together. We actually ended up trying 3 different glues and settled on some super glue, which is what's holding it together at the moment. So yeah, I would recommend checking out which glue is going to be the best for your materials which you're using. So yeah, if you can get yourself a cheap second-hand lens, perhaps one which is broken in some other way but the glass is still good, then this whole setup can cost you less than $30. So we're off to go outside and play around with it.